Hello everyone and welcome to my new series called Coding for the AEC. In this series I'm going to teach you a little bit about the basics of coding. So this is for you if you're an architect or an engineer and you have no clue about programming, but you are kind of interested in it. I mean, it is getting more and more important in every industry, so it might be a good skill to have some basic knowledge about it, and then maybe you will discover that it will help you solve some problems that you're having. And to support this series and to communicate with you, I made a Patreon page on which I will upload all the files that I use in this tutorial for free. I use Patreon, but it is going to be for free. I mean, you can leave a donation if you want to support me, but I just thought it would be the best platform to exchange the files and to help you if you have a question. So the link to this page is going to be in the description box below, and feel free to go there and download all the files and take a look into it. So, for now, let's get into the coding. So, you've probably heard that there are different languages, and that language that we are going to look into first is C#. Maybe in the future we will talk about other languages as well, but this will be our start point. And to do the actual coding, you will need some kind of development environment, or IDE. So I will be using Visual Studio, and there is a free version of that, so I would recommend you to download it and install it as well if you don't have it already on your computer. I will put a link to a tutorial in the description box of how you can download it. The free version is called Visual Studio Community. And once you have downloaded it, open it up, and then we'll get right into it and start learning by doing. So, once you have installed and opened Visual Studio, it's going to look somewhat like this. To start a new project, we click on File, New, Project, and now you have here all these different languages. As I said, C++, JavaScript, but we're going to use C#. And what we need for now is just a console app. So here you can change the source path where your project is going to be saved. And we can name it, coding for AEC 1. Okay. So once your project has launched, you see all these different windows. Maybe you even see different windows because you have a different setting. But the only thing that we need to pay attention to for now is this window here, which you should all have open, which is the editor. So this is part of any development environment, which is just a basic text editor where you can type in your commands that you want the computer to execute. And as a test command, you already here have this hello world command. And now let's take a look and see what this does. So console writeline tells the computer that you want it to write something out for you. And then in the brackets, you have the thing that you want it to write. So in this case, it's a text, which the computer knows because you put it in quotation marks, and it says hello world. And now if we start this, we see that here it prints out hello world for you. And this window that it opens up for you is called the console. So this is kind of your communication window with the application. This is where you can type in some input and might return some output. So in this case, we got the hello world, which we told the computer to send to the console. And so now you've already run your first application. So let's stop this and create our own. And what we want to do is to create a program that calculates the area and the parameter of a rectangle for us. So we want to enter the two dimensions of a rectangle, and then for the computer to calculate for us what the area of the given rectangle is and the parameter. So as you know, a rectangle is defined by 2 dimensions. Let's call them A and B, and with a certain length. And how can we feed this information to the computer? And this is where variables come into place. The variable is going to store the information of those dimensions so we can then use it in the calculations. Now it looks like this. So it has a data type, a name, and a value. So what is this data type thing? Well, there are different kinds of data types. So for example, integers that are written int, which are whole numbers. So for example, 5 or 6 or -10 or 335. And the way you use it is you write int and then a name, which can be A or Peter or I don't know, anything. And then you can assign a value to it, which is in this case 5. Or as I said, it can be any other whole number. And then to get a float point number, we use double. And it's written in the same scheme, double, and then the name, and then you write the number, which can in this case be a floating point number. So those are 2 number types. There are also some other, but these are the 2 important ones. But you can also have different data types, like for example the string, which stores text, as in a sequence of characters. So it's the same pattern. You write string and then you give it a name. So for example, also string 1, and then you remember this from the Hello World program. You put your text in quotation marks. And then a bool is just a data type to store if something is true or false. So for our dimensions, we will need a precise number type. So we're going to choose the double. Okay, so let's now put that into our text editor. The important thing is that you write after this main statement and in between those 2 braces, because this is where the computer is going to expect that your code is written, to put it simple. So we need a double, as I said, the name A, or anything that we would like to have. It doesn't matter. And then let's say this is 5. And then to finish off this statement, you put a semicolon. And yay! This is your first statement that you wrote in your first ever program. So yay! Let's do the same for B. And let's say this is 10, just to put it simple, semicolon, done. Now we want to calculate, as I said, the area of this. So we need another variable called area, which is of course also a double, because we want it to be precise. So we call this area, and we say, because we don't know the value of it yet, but we know how it is calculated, it is A times B. And when the program is executed, it will look for A, and then take the value from A, and look for B, and take the value from B, and then assign the product of those to the area variable. Now we can do the same for the parameter, which is A plus B times 2, right? And now to find out what the computer has calculated for us, we need it to print out the result for us. So instead of hello world, we want it now to say the area is, and then the value of area. And then we do the same for the parameter, just copy and paste this and say the meter is parameter. Okay, and now let's just start this program. And you see, here are our results. Cool, right? But let's imagine you have multiple rectangles and you don't want to repeat all of these 6 lines for every rectangle, because that would be a lot of work. So let's see if we can make this code more efficient. And this is what we need functions for. And a function looks like this. It has a return type, which is the data type, so you remember one of those, from the result that we want to get. And then it has a name. It might have input variables. And then it has the body in which we do all the calculations. So this might sound a bit abstract, but let's just try it out and then you will see how it works. Now to calculate our area, a function might look like this. We have the return type, which would be a double. So as I said, it's the type of the result. So of this here, this is what we want to get from the function. And then a name. So let's just call this area calculator. As an input, it takes 2 doubles called dimension 1, for example, and dimension 2. And then it has a body, which is in those curly braces. And the same thing we did here when we multiplied A and B, we're going to do now here, but we're going to multiply dim1 and dim2, which will act as placeholders, so that you can use this function anywhere and just give it 2 values, and it's going to perform the multiplication on them. So let's write it like this: double result equals dim1 times dim2, semicolon, and then return result. Okay, now let's quickly cut out and paste this area statement down here. Okay, and now instead of calculating it directly, we're going to use the function area calculator to calculate the result for us. So we write area calculator, and then here you can already see it will need 2 doubles with which it can replace dim1 and dim2. So we're going to give it A and B. So for just one rectangle, this is of course more code now than if you calculate it directly. But now let's imagine you have more rectangles. So this would be, I don't know, 3. And then another one that is 359. We can always just call the function and calculate any kind of area. So for example, now this would be C and B. And then, oh, I forgot to name it D, sorry. And then D and another number that we input directly. Now let's name this one to make it beautiful. And then we will always calculate the result for us with whatever inputs we give it. And now to see the result in the console, we would always need to rewrite this, the area is, and then area 1, area 2, but we can also just simply put this into the function as well, so that it will always automatically tell us the result of the calculation and then print it out to the console. Okay, so let's try this. So in this first line, we have the calculations from the first area, and then the second and the third. And here is then, because the program goes through it line by line, so here it will start looking for the area calculator and find it here, and then go into the calculator and just first do the multiplication and then print out the result, and then it goes back to the next line here, and then jump into the calculator and perform the same thing again. And then once it's finished with area 3, it will go to this line in which it says print out the parameter, which is this one on the top. So this is what we got here in the console. Now another thing that would be cool would be if you could directly type in your dimensions here in the console, and it would automatically feed back to you the result. So let's try that. So for that we don't need all of this anymore, and we click on here, comment out the selected lines, which puts those two slashes in front of it so that you so that the computer knows that he can just ignore those lines. So as you remember, we have the console write line command when we want the computer to write something out for us. Now we want to read something in, which is our active user input. So we use the read line command. But first we're going to put a line so that the user knows what to do. Let's say, please enter the first dimension. Oops. So, and then what the user is going to input is going to be recognized as a string from the program. So as if you remember, a string was a data type that is a sequence of characters. So we will need a string to catch those whatever the user types in, and we're going to name it just string 1, and it is going to be whatever the user inputs, so console read line. And then we do the same for the second dimension. Please enter the second dimension, and it is our string 2. Oops. And now this is in red because I forgot to put brackets behind it. Okay. And why is this red? Because it is a capital L. Okay. So now we have those two strings, but to use the area calculator we need two doubles. So we are going to convert them to doubles. So let's say double E is the convert to double from string 1, semicolon, and double F is the result of convert to double from string 2. Perfect. And then we can use the area calculator of E and F. So now let's press start and see what happens. Okay, please enter the first dimension, which is the text that we said that it should write in this statement. Okay, so let's enter, for example, 16. please enter the second dimension. 25. And now let's press enter again. And what you see now is that you don't see anything because we commented out this line of code. So what happened is the computer calculated the result, but it was so quickly that we couldn't see it. So we need this line to tell the console to stop and stay open, and so that we can actually see the result. Okay, so let's try this again. 16, 25, and now here we have, it prints out for us this line. And you see here it stays open until we press enter again, and then the program closes. So, I hope you liked your first lesson in programming. It is a bit theory-based in the beginning, but if you went through with it, you can be very proud of yourself. And it is getting more fun, because next time I think we're already ready to program our first little plugin for Revit. So that should be fun, right? Please tell me in the comments if you like this video, what are the topics that you're interested in. Feel free to share it, and then I'll see you next Monday. And until then, have a nice day. Bye bye.